welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, Jay Dewey. Today we are going through the players that I've had in every single one of my teams so far in the preseason. That's going to be part one. Part two is going to be the players that I don't think I'll go without in round one. And these are slightly different things players have had in all my sides versus ones that I definitely don't think I'll move on from here. But I think it's important to show you because often we look at full teams and then people kind of believe I have the same confidence or faith in every player across my team. And it's just not the case. There's some that I believe in more than others. And they're the ones that I really like and really value and will absolutely have. And then others are much more interchangeable based on what you like and your preferences. And I think it's one of the things people get caught up with when they follow content creators is almost copying a full 30-person team. None of us ever profess to have all the answers. We don't win every year, but we are pretty good at the game. We get close. So this is really meant to give you a starting point for the players that I have more conviction on when it comes to picking a team of 30 and the ones I really like. Many of these won't be surprising because they're players that a lot of people really like. But then it should give you some indicator of where you can go more unique, put in your pods and places some of the people that I'm picking. So that's going to be today's video going through those. I'm going to do another video which is highly owned players that I haven't had in any of my sides, and I think that's good at the other end. It gives you a flavor for the types of players that I'm really happy to bet against and fade this year, even if it bites me. Inevitably, I get some of those wrong too. But let's go through. I've got 9 players I want to say that I've had in all my sides. I think I've done 5 team videos so far. So yeah, all right. In defense, it's actually surprisingly thin. I thought there was going to be more in here, but Connor McKenna is the only defender I've had all the way through. I've had Dawson in a lot of sides. I had Stewart in a lot of sides early. I had Yo in a lot of sides, but no one has held all the way through apart from McKenna, which is very surprising. It's the only defender. In the midfield, this is actually the line where I've had the most players stick for the full preseason. So Bontempelli was one of the first picked in my side when the team pick opened, and I have not found a single reason to move on from him. And I don't think that's going to change between now and round one either, but we'll go through that in the second bit. And surprisingly, there's another, I guess, primo pick, and that is Tom Green. Been in love with him from the start, so has been in every single one of my sides. Then next up is Hopper, who was kind of the obvious mid-pricer choice coming into the preseason. A lot of people will also have held him all the way through, which I don't blame him. And then to round it off, we've got Ashcroft and Phillips, who were kind of the two of the more obvious rookies earmarked from day one, and they haven't really changed. Not very exciting picks, those last 3, but there you go. Now, I was a little bit surprised to see my rucks. I had at least one variation of a team without Marshall in it, which makes sense. So he unfortunately can't be put in here. And then for the forward line, we had Dunkley, we had Taranto. I definitely toyed with some thinner forward lines. So I've had teams without Rosie. And then the last one that fits in here is McLean. So Dunkley and Taranto, I think, were 2 of the more obvious forward choices that I would say most people in the same boat. They've had them the whole way through their preseason. And then McLean was once again another one of those mature age rookies that looked like it's going to be really good for us. It was only through the last preseason game that people actually started jumping off him. I still think he's probably a better option than a lot of the others, and the preseason game didn't do him justice. But there you go. Those are my 9 players that I've had in every single one of my preseason teams so far. And I think it's a pretty respectable 9. All right, but what we're going to do next is swap it up a little bit, and I'm now going to show you the players that I don't think I could see myself swapping out between now and when teams are named, and we'll go through those as well. So let's clear this. I think I can scroll down and clear my team. Yes. Now, there's going to be a lot of overlap, but there are going to be some differences here as well. So let's firstly go in defense. There's 2 defenders, so Yo and Ginby. Good old Ruben. So yeah, Yo, I've said this, I think, on a fair few of the FantasyTakeTV pods, especially for the preseason work and the mid-prices one that we put out. But of all the mid-prices, Yo is the one that I think is most likely to end up being a keeper. Doesn't mean he will be. There's obviously a lot that can go wrong and others can pop up. But I think if just, running a simulation, he's the one that ends up as the keeper more often than all the others. So yeah, I can't see myself going without him. He's got the role. He's got the history. Mature, yes, the West Coast midfield doesn't look particularly great, and he didn't have the greatest preseason game, but I still think he's the most likely to reach that keeper premium status of any of the mid-price options, excluding like Goulden, who's like he's calling him a mid-price is a little bit sus. So of the true mid-prices, I think Yo's it. So I can't see myself getting away from him unless there's some type of injury news that comes out between now and round one that puts him in his durability or ability to score in doubt. Next up is Ginby, and of the rookies that we've seen come through this year, he is one that stands out as big body, ready to play AFL, is going to be given the opportunity from a side that needs to play you, so his job security should be good, and his scoring looked really good from the preseason as well. I just can't see myself moving away from this pick in any shape or form whatsoever. So interestingly, McKenna has dropped from here. I have found that in some of my sides, I either want to push him to the bench or I want to free up that money to fix up something else in my team. So I think even though McKenna is likely to go on my side, there's a small chance I don't. Constable and Wilmot are probably the other rookies that I'm very likely to start, but just given they are rookies, we don't really know what's going to happen. Like if Powell and Weller come back, is Constable still getting a spot in round one? Is there a chance that Wilmot gets used as a sub or something like that? Like that, I think there's just a chance that because of teams that don't end up picking them, but they're all very highly likely. Look, I think Doherty and Dawson are probably still the most likely premiums I look at as well. And Jones, I'd say, is pretty likely as well. Like I think I've pretty much named my backline from the last video. They're all very highly likely, but I see scenarios where I pivot off them. I just don't see the same being true for Yo and Gimme. So yeah, I guess they're like my highest conviction kind of picks in defense at the moment. All right, the midfield is actually, I probably shouldn't have cleared it because I think the midfield ends up being exactly the same. So it's still Bontempelli, it's still Green, it's still Hopper, it's still Ashcroft, and still Phillips. Can't see myself getting away from any of them. Maybe Phillips surprises people a little bit, but I think his job security is all right. He still had high CBAs on the weekend. Ashcroft, there's no way you move off him. Hopper had, 70, 80% CBAs. Perfect. Yeah, he didn't look the best on the weekend either, but he'll be fine. He's done 90s before, which is what you need at his price. Green has ticked all the boxes all the way through the preseason. He's got the opportunity. He slimmed down. He looked good. His price is amazing. GWS's fixture is nice. Like, just no way to move off it. And Bont continued to have more good press this week with the additions of that Dogs forward line. Seems like there's less likelihood that he spends time there, especially with Dunkley moving on. Should be more time in the midfield. Not that he didn't get enough previously, but he's going to get a little bit of cherry on top. So yeah, I can't see myself moving away from any of them. Who are the notable omissions here? I guess like Cam McKenzie, who came into vogue really after the weekend. There's probably a world where I could move on from him. That's probably possible. Baker, I really like as an option, but there's a chance that he doesn't get a role in the dog side. He wasn't originally meant to on the weekend prior to injuries. So like I can see some scenarios where I don't end up going with him. The other premiums I have in here, like Kelly, Steele, McRae. I'm probably picking two of those three, but like, will they change between now and round one? Possibly. So yeah, like none of them are in here as like kind of those highest conviction picks. And I think that's pretty much everyone in the midfield. Now in the rucks, we do of course add Marshall here. I don't see myself getting away from Marshall whatsoever. The only thing I can possibly think of is looking at Sandy's side for the VFL practice match on the weekend. Tom Campbell is not playing, which might mean he's ready for seniors if they're holding him out from the VFL game. Pardon me. So that's somewhat like a little bit of a concern, but I still think there's no way I move on from Marshall. Now I could put Madden in here as a cheeky option, the old 102K loophole. But the reality is, what is it? Samson Ryan for Tigers. If he gets named round one, I probably play him. And while it's a really long shot, maybe I still do look at Radigalia or something like that, possibly. And then the other ruck is, Darcy, that I have in my side, but I'm not, he's by no means locked. I mean, he missed round one last year. I had to pivot to Wits, which ended up being a stroke of genius. Thank you, Darcy. But yeah, I mean, there's no way I can possibly say he's locked. All right, in the forward line, I mean, this hasn't changed. It's Dunkley, it's Taranto, and I guess we'll also add in Rosie. I don't see myself moving on from any of these three. The other options I liked kind of early in the preseason, and Butters and Moore have kind of ruled themselves out with injury and lack of CBAs, respectively. And then Cogs is the one that I've pulled in and out of this side, but we've had a better option come up in Goulden, and honestly, I can't see myself moving away from Goulden as well. So I'm going to put him in here as a high conviction. There's very, very high likelihood that I start with him round one. And the simple reason is that the coaches have been talking about it. He's going to get more opportunities, he's going to get more mid-time. He looks great. Like, it's very positive press. And while people have like invoked the name of Isaac Heaney with Horse mucking around in the preseason and then not delivering on it, the talk and the chatter just sounds different to what happened with Heaney. So, yeah, like, he's not, by no means is he getting 60% CBAs. I'm not under the illusion that's the case, but I think he's getting like a 30% bump to 40%. And if there's an injury ahead of him, it could even be more. Or if he continues to play lights out like he did on the weekend, it could go up as well. So yeah, that puts him at probably like something like a 105 for the year. He's priced at 85. I mean, that's 20 points upside, 15, 20 points upside, which is pretty nuts. So for someone that ends up being a keeper. So yeah, can't see myself moving away from that whatsoever. Who are the other picks we could talk about here? So I guess like Brun and Flanders. I mean, Brun's not my side at the moment. Flanders is one that I struggle to see myself moving on from. Like, I have toyed where I've had extra money though, moving him up to someone like a Brun, but yeah, I just don't think he's going to turn into Tin Tan. So I can't put hand on heart say he'll be there come Friday or Saturday. So move him out. McLean, who was one of those ones that had been in my side all preseason as well. I think this is pretty likely that he's there, but he did play bad enough that maybe there's a concern over what his role looks like. Do they use him as a sub? I think it's pretty low likelihood, but I can't lock him in. And then like the rookies that I like, I mean, I think Davey and Green are both like really, really likely to get games. They can probably be in here. Like, there's probably no way I don't have them in my side, because the reality is there's not many alternative forwards that are actually good options that look like they have job security. So yeah, I think there's almost no way I move off either of those. I think they're both getting games. Like, I'm really confident they're both getting games, and like, their scoring's not going to be great, but it's not like there's alternatives that would pop up that I'd move them on for anyway. And worst case, if we were to get three forwards, I move Davey into the midfield or something. Like, it's just, I think they always end up being picked. So what does this leave? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 14 out of 30 that I think, oh, it says up the top. Jeez, come on. Come on, JD. So that's, yeah, like 14. It's almost half the squad that I think is pretty much locked in between now and round one. I can't see myself moving off. So if you're interested in looking at my teams and using it as a base or a template, you've kind of seen the plays I've held all the way through, which is the 9, and then those I have high conviction on, these 14. And though either of those gives you a really good, I think, base to then adjust the team from here based on what you like. So if you want to do 2 premium defenders, which is what I've got at the moment, 4 in the midfield and that 12 primo setup, you can definitely do that with this template. If you want to add cogs into that forward line, kind of run that 5 primo forward, you can do that as well. Yeah, I think you've got a couple of options there in terms of how you structure this up from here. Maybe going Bont, Green, Led, and Clary if you're into the kind of like the super heavy midfield might be a bit tough, but yeah, I think this is a really, really solid starting base, and it's all players that I'm a big believer in for the year ahead. But let me know, who are the players that have been locked into your sides? Who are the ones that you have high conviction on that there's no way you can see yourself moving off? And let me know if you disagree with some of these. Like, if you think I've kind of got rocks in my head for being so bullish on them. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video, which is going to be looking at the flip side, the highly owned players that I haven't owned. I guess I'm fading them. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in as always. Peace.